to start this with a smile, because I noticed on my thumbnails, so many of my thumbnails, I'm sort of like, you know, that bit that comes up saying, you know, do you want to watch this video? Do you want to watch this video of this man? Anyway, it's just me smiling. Right. Anyway, so, good morning again to you all today. About 10 years ago, that's where I'm going to start today. About 10 years ago, I got a wonderful invite onto a sailing race. It was a race. It was my company I was working for at the time, Dutch company. We got invited. I got invited into a racing team over in Rotterdam. We had got this chance of going and sailing in these, you know, these old ships, like sailing ships, not, you know, not with power, old sailing ships. So I was invited over, went to Rotterdam, and the plan was this race was all these, it's called the Race of the Classics, by the way. They do a student version, they do a sort of company version. And you race from Rotterdam to Ipswich, and then back over and finish in Amsterdam. So I had this privilege of being invited onto this racing team, and of course we went on to this lovely old sailing vessel. I remember at the time it was 100 years old. It was like, it was beautiful. And so the race, the race was delayed in starting because out in the North Sea, you can imagine the weather's still going, it's all going for it. And we were sort of like stuck in. So what happened was, because of the delay, they decided instead of racing to Ipswich, we didn't get to go to Ipswich. Insert your own comments there. We didn't get to go to Ipswich. We just went out of Rotterdam, plan was, and then raced round to Amsterdam. Now, the thing is, Rotterdam, unfortunately, I'm really bad. Don't know the name of the river, but you're in Rotterdam. You go up this long, straight sort of river. It's like if you think about the Port of London and the Thames. Same thing in Rotterdam. You head out, and it's all nice. It's lovely. You're going along, and then you come out at the end. It's the North Sea. And I'll tell you what, you know, it was lovely going along on that bit. It was nice and flat and stuff. And we came out into the North Sea, and suddenly you're like that, and you. And now, I got seasick. I'll be honest, I didn't actually, wasn't actually sick, but I felt it, and it was horrible. My belly was going for it, and my head was all over the place. And I remembered what somebody had said to me beforehand: if you get seasick, is you focus on a point on the horizon. So that's what I did. I sort of sat down on the side of the boat, and I was just directly looking at the horizon, and that helped me a lot. Didn't stop me from feeling completely sick, but you know, I didn't feel overwhelmed by it. I could handle it, just sort of sitting there, focusing on the horizon. And then quite a few hours later, we came into a port. I couldn't tell you which one it was, and it was this really amazing feeling of pulled into this sort of like port. I make it sound like a car or something, but you know, it was all shipping. And we pulled into this the port, and the moment we got inside the enclosure there, it was sort of like, it was calm. It was instantly calm. And at that point as well, I could feel it sort of like, oh, that's better. I'm not being thrown all over the place. My body instantly sort of recognised it. So that was my fun sailing trip. It carried on a bit longer than that, but helps with my story here. So in relation to that as well, I thought I'd like to read to you from the book of John. And in John chapter 6, we read this. When evening came, his disciples went down to the lake, where they got into a boat and set off across the lake for Capernaum. By now it was dark, and Jesus had not yet joined them. A strong wind was blowing, and the waters grew rough. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching, walking on the water, and they were frightened. But he said to them, "It's I, don't be afraid." Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. Now, if I was a preaching man, shame, but not for this morning. Could bring a lot out of that, but just a few things I wanted to talk about. What happens with Jesus there? This is the reality, right? This is a story from history. This is something that happened. And I've noticed in conversation with people, in fact, it's one of those things I notice with people with Christianity they joke about most is, yeah, Jesus walking on water, you know. And I feel that sometimes people put that sort of supernatural element of who God is as a barrier to them having a relationship with God. And it's this interesting thing that most people I think I'd speak to, and well, especially according to Facebook, would agree that they would believe in heaven. They would believe in that afterlife, which I tell you now, it's supernatural. Heaven is a supernatural place in which it's inhabited by a supernatural God, who when he inhabited the earth did supernatural things. Don't let the supernatural be a barrier. It's something to embrace. So maybe that's a personal thing of mine I wanted to throw out there. But number two in that, this is the thing, is there's a storm going on with these disciples, okay? And then Jesus appears on the water. We have storms in life. We're going to have storms in life. You may be in a storm in your life right now. There's a point there, right, where they recognise, you know, they see this and this person walking on the water, scary, and Jesus says, don't be afraid, it's me. And then it says, and then they let him in the boat. It was like, okay, it's you. You can come into this part of my life. And I think that's the deal there. There's an element of, we will have storms in life. You're going to go through rubbish. When do you let Jesus in? When you're really frightened? When you're really sort of at the end of your tether? When do we let him in? And this is the thing, right? Because I think letting Jesus into the problem, it doesn't take, you know, the storm doesn't go maybe, but the reality is, it's like me on that boat with the waves and stuff, okay? My focus changes. My focus will change and it will help. And I'll tell you that now. The reality is I still as a Christian go through storms in life. But if my focus is on Jesus, I know that actually, you know, that helps me. He is my crutch. I say it quite a lot. It's not a problem to me. I will lean on him. And that's the thing, focusing on him. And then the last thing is, just want to say, is that when Jesus got into that boat, he then said this interesting thing. It said, and then immediately they reached the shore. It was like, Sea of Galilee's like miles wide. And immediately they reached the shore. So there's two things there. Sometimes it might feel, when Jesus gets in the boat, that it's so much better. So it feels like the storm's over. And then secondly, it might actually, when Jesus enters into that storm in your life, it actually might be over immediately. But the big reassuring fact of being in a storm, of like me, when I entered into that pool, like Jesus entering into into a storm, the reality is, Jesus is the hope that says, where you are now is not where you forever will be. I'm going to write down, it will not always be this way. That's the reality of Jesus. Jesus is a declaration that says, you see where you are now? That's not where you're always going to be. I'm going to get in the boat and things are going to change. That's the thing I would ask you to remember to take with you into this day. You know what? Sometimes we want God to come in and just take us right out of the storm. But the reality is, he wants to get in the boat and go through it with us. Have a lovely day.